I was just in awe. It was a mixture of screaming with joy and tears of joy.
And the stunning northern lights over the skies of Britain in your words.
Now then, just take a look at this. Pretty spectacular. Last night produced a surprisingly strong display of the northern lights across the UK. While there was a weak solar storm, the aurora ended up being visible from the Scottish Highlands all the way down to Cornwall. Activity in the sun has been increasing over the last few years, and there is a greater chance of seeing the aurora now as the sun is reaching the peak of its 11-year cycle. And that means an increase in the number of sunspots, massive fields of magnetic pressure on the surface of the sun. OK, the weather forecast with Stav in just a moment. First, just take a look at this, because high winds in Nevada and Utah in the United States have swept in a huge amount of tumbleweed, causing major disruption. The high winds are expected to continue, and local people are being told they can expect the tumbleweed to keep on tumbling. Right, Stav's here with the weather. No problems with high winds and tumbleweed here, I hope?
No, quite the opposite, actually, Ben. It's looking calmer, more settled as we move through this week, and it'll be quite typical of the first week of meteorological spring. This upcoming week is looking increasingly drier, in fact, as high pressure over Scandinavia starts to exert its force towards our shores, but not in the short term.
Good afternoon. It was a bright start this morning. Some sunshine, yes, but also a little bit of frost. Temperatures down below zero overnight last night.
Now, as we mentioned before the break, the US states of Nevada and Utah have been hit by a tumbleweed invasion. Have a look. Yeah, proper tumbleweed moment there. High winds swept large numbers of the plants onto streets and homes. Videos shared on social media showed huge numbers of the invasive species blocking roads and piling up against properties. Yeah, kind of amazing.
I've got an exclusive for you tonight. The first tulip at Ham House is out, and it's all because of the mild weather.
Right, Sally's joined us in the studio, and spring has finally sprung. I mean, it didn't bother turning up on Saturday, but it was definitely here yesterday.
Oh, and didn't it lift the mood? It was just so nice. We went down to the allotment. Not that many people there. I thought there'd be a few more, and something happened that never happened before. Our kids came with us, not too whingy, and they all took part. The three of them.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my goodness, what's happened to my family? They're actually gardening. And it was so nice, and the worms are out, the birds are out, and I've got more Jerusalem artichokes than I ever need in my life. If anyone wants one, they're all at my allotment. And it was so nice. And then today, of course, was a beautiful start. I hope everyone enjoyed it. It finally feels like we've got a bit of spring
really
here.
Does.
And at Ham House in Richmond, their plants are coming early. Things are flowering up to 2 weeks in advance, and compared to some parts of the country, a month in advance. So I went to take a little look and see all of Ham in its beauty. Let's take a look. Here we go. Spring hasn't just sprung at Ham House, it's bolted. From the crocuses to the scented daffodils, gorgeous, the hyacinths to the blossom. Some have come 2 weeks earlier than last year. John, tell them the figure. How many bulbs have you got on these lawns?
There's 500,000 bulbs in these lawns.
500,000, wow.
The crocuses not only came early, they lasted longer, and the apricot blossom was also ahead of the game.
Do you actually get any apricots off
We
this?
do sometimes, depending on whether the squirrels let us have some.
Oh no!
But yeah, ideally, it's a goal.
Squirrels or not, it could be that the weather becomes a problem, because flowering early can have its downsides.
If we get any cold weather later on in the month or in the rest of spring, and it gets frosted, then we lose all the blossom, then lose all the fruit.
It's little wonder flowers like this have come out early. London's had its warmest February on record, and while we're on the subject, its third wettest too.
Clearly, climate change is a huge concern, but there is one positive to a longer season.
You can also have a bumper crop of fruit, for example, so you might get extra crops, things like figs. If you get a long warm summer, you'll get extra figs and things in your trees.
Okay. Well, glad there's some good news. Look at your knees are going. Sorry, this is
right.
gardener's knees.
And food is built into things like their edible hedge here.
Tell me what I'll be able to eat when I come in the summer.
So you'll be able to eat sloes, crab apples, and then you'll also have cherry plums, obviously, some hazelnuts.
Oh, wow.
And they're all things that you can kind of make into jams and lovely things like that.
Breakfast delights.
Yeah.
We spotted the first tulip of their season today too, and unlike the odd house guest that turns up early, the flowers here are very welcome indeed.
Now you brought us some to look at, haven't you?
Well, I have. I bought you some little violets. I don't know if people can see them. They did not, Charlene, travel very well.
No.
They look a little bit on the miserable side. But I wanted to know if you can smell the violet.
Okay.
Go have a whiff. Can you smell it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
I'm not actually joking. They really, you can smell them.
Parma violet. Parma violet.
Wow.
And if you eat them, they don't take. They have all the soap of a Parma violet. Remember that sweet, but none of the sugar.
Right.
So a bit disappointing, but I think apparently you can put them on a salad. I did have one earlier, and I'm still here.
Oh.
Always a bonus, although that's probably debatable. Right, let's take a little look at the weather. Here we go. Hello again, and a very good evening to you. I hope you had a good start to the week. So gorgeous to see these signs of spring. Keep them coming. Now, this evening, we have got a bit of light rain around, I'm afraid. But tomorrow, some nice sunny spells in the mix. There are still a few showers, but hopefully you'll get a bit more of that spring-like weather.
Absolutely stunning. Time for a look at the weather now with Matt Taylor. And Matt, are we going to see the Northern Lights again tonight?
Amazing. It would be great if we could, and it's not out of the question. Let me just show you. Very good evening to you. This is our Aurora forecast, so it shows where the Aurora is certainly possible as we go through into tonight. Notice how it is going to clip into parts of Scotland, so there could be a chance here, maybe less so further south. But, of course, we do have that complication of the weather thrown in. Now, for the rest of the week, it's a battle between high pressure in Scandinavia, low pressure out in the Atlantic. We're sandwiched in between the two. Now, what that means weather-wise is that it is going to be not as wet as it has been of late. A lot more in the way of drier weather. Cloud amounts are going to vary, but as we start to see them pushed together, the winds will pick up.
And a lovely bright start to the week.
It really was, but quite chilly to be out on the Thames this morning. It really felt a little bit more like winter, with temperatures overnight dropping down below zero. Had a little bit of frost first thing, but there are plenty of signs of spring out there. The flowers are in bloom, or else the trees are in bloom. Magnolias, some blossom already blooming. So it did really feel a bit like spring this morning. Plenty of blue sky. Looked less like spring this afternoon, this veil of cloud, but the temperature perhaps said otherwise.
And Alex is here, and it's been pretty mild, hasn't it? Tell me about February. Was it a record breaker in the end?
I mean, we're into March now. That's been relatively mild so far, but February was the actually warmest on record for England and Wales. And in fact, signs of it are all around us. You may have noticed that in particular in the south, blossom trees are starting to flower, along with many spring flowers up to 4 weeks earlier than expected. And horticulturalists say as long as there are no sudden dips in temperature, it should make for a long, drawn-out season. The shift to earlier blooms is down to the very mild winter and an indication of how climate is warming. In fact, some climate scientists have been predicting milder and wetter winters, and it seems that nature is responding in line with this shift in the seasons. On the one hand, it's worrying, of course. On the other, it has provided an early pop of colour for what has been a pretty grey February. Into March now, and looks like it's going to be staying pretty settled, actually, as we head through the next couple of days. Well, let's take a look at the forecast then in a lot more detail. And as we head through the course of this week, yes, it's been a changeable start, but it is going to be turning drier and more settled through the middle part of the week, with the risk of rain arriving for, yes, the next weekend coming. So that's the way it's looking. Actually, not a bad week. As I say, the middle part towards Friday, certainly plenty of dry, settled weather for many parts of the British Isles. Makes a change, doesn't it, after what's been a pretty mild and wet winter.
But wet in time for the weekend. Thanks, Alex.
As always.
Great stuff. OK.